It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
Unfortunately, Les could not be with us this week. Hopefully he'll be with us next week. Hurry back, Les. We miss you already.
We miss you.
We miss,
so how are you guys?
We miss who now? What? Oh, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Beep, 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 beep.
Gotta have a little one. I mean, come on.
So how are you guys doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Peachy keen.
Hope everybody's doing okay out there. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy? It's been a couple weeks.
It has been a couple of weeks. Well, I'm still in my Little House on the Prairie marathon. I know that's I'll probably never quit watching the show, but PBS just released a Masterworks behind Laura Ingalls, and I found that pretty interesting. There's some things in there that they show you was a little different from the book series, which of course was way different than the TV series and everything else. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting when they do things like that, and then sometimes you wish they wouldn't do things like that. Because it's kind of nice thinking how this little family was, and then they're like, no, that's not the case. So, but if you're interested in like the prairie life and that kind of thing, it was pretty good. I would have to say that Laura Ingalls is probably a pretty well-known name even now. I don't know if she's doing much now though. But anyways, usually on the weekends, TBS or Sci-Fi or Freeform will run some sort of like mini marathon. They'll take movies that have had prequels, sequels, whatever, throw them all together, and that's what you watch all weekend. So I've talked about it quite a few times on here. I usually wind up, it's background chatter. It sounds crazy, but I have to have the TV on in order to concentrate on whatever I'm doing. So.
No, that doesn't sound crazy at all.
I think part of that's because I'm a mom and I have to have some kind of chaos in the background. But this weekend they happened to show Indiana Jones. Now I've seen a few of them, and I think I've told you guys before, I've only seen bits and pieces. I saw the first one, but not like when everybody was into the Indiana craze. I was probably too young for that.
You were 6, right?
Yeah, right. So I knew who he was because, like Pitfall and that kind of stuff. So I actually got to watch them all, and I'm assuming now that I've kind of looked online about it, the order they showed them was actually not the order that they were put out. And it was like, oh, of course it's not in the order that they put it out, because this is George Lucas. He can't ever just be straight with it.
You say that, but what order did they show it in? Because the deal is the movies were not,
they were not
in time
they
order.
Were not, right.
Yeah, this was in time order. Ending with the, I ended it with the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Which was the movie that I really had a problem with.
You and
all the
everybody
other
else.
ones was great. I mean, it kind of has a theme going. He's looking for ancient religious objects, which, hey, that's right up my alley, You can tell what they have put in these films that's supposed to be like cheesy, corny, but it works because they're aiming for that. I felt with the Crystal Skull, it came off that way without them aiming for that. And then kind of like the movie we're about to talk about. When you bring aliens into something, you lose me. I'm like, whatever. Not that I don't believe in aliens because I so totally do. It's just sometimes I feel that movies throw in that alien reference because they don't know how to wrap it up. They don't know why the hell all of this happened, how it could happen. Oh, well, it was aliens. So to me, I've never really gotten into that, instead of the devil did it, the alien did it. It's just, you know, I, I can't do that. But some of the other effects in the movie, once again, when you realize that's the effect they're going for, you don't notice it as much, and it's not that bad because that you can tell. Like I said, with this one, the CGI was so bad, it was bad. It's really, really bad. But yeah, after no spoilers, but after something else that I had watched, it was just kind of like, are you kidding me? Leave the freaking aliens alone. And I guess it's weird. I've always liked things like Star Wars and Star Trek and that kind of thing, but I'm just not into I don't know, the horror aliens or I don't know. Just some of it's just kind of weird. So I'm not alone. That movie sucked.
There were a few people that liked it.
A few people,
A
huh?
few people, but yeah, the general consensus was that it was not particularly good.
Yeah. It just, I really liked the one with Sean Connery. That one, the way that they, I guess partly because I miss River Phoenix too. So to see him young and doing something good was, kind of like, oh, good old days. But they couldn't have picked a better person to be his dad or the younger version of him. If I had to cast those parts in that time, that's who I would have picked too. It's just so dead on.
The funny thing is that it's like a 2 to 5 year age difference between the two.
Yeah.
But he's playing dad, so okay.
Well, they did kind
Acting.
of age him up.
Well, he looked old
I
anyway.
I don't think they had to age him up that much at that point,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
He looked old. Yeah.
I think they aged him down for Never Say Never Again.
Oh God, yeah.
But that was really only a couple of years before that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really what he looked like.
Yeah, I liked them. It kind of ended differently than what I thought it was going to. And maybe it's because I didn't follow it closely enough. But my understanding was whoever drank from the chalice they would be immortal. So I was like, okay, he's going to save his dad, which he did. And his dad, with how much of his life he's dedicated to this stuff, is going to take the old dude's place. And that didn't really happen.
But they also mention if you, I'm not sure about how it was with the water, but if the cup was taken over a certain point, either it was a seal or something like that, then it's not supposed to work. If I'm remembering correctly, Does that sound vaguely familiar, Mike?
He
I
told
haven't
him
seen that
not
movie
to
in
go
years.
outside of the area, which there was a seal on the floor. But his dad was laying in that area. If not, the temple would have started breaking and, like it did for the girl.
But they left. So I mean, the immortality probably doesn't work once they left the temple.
Well, and the other thing, and you will be right here with me on this one, Liz. The other thing you have to remember is we're talking about Christian mythology at this point.
Right.
And usually the way that thing gets described, they use the term everlasting life, which means something very different to Christians. That does not mean immortality.
Doesn't mean here on earth, but
right. So take that with however you want too, but
right. So in my Googling, they're saying they're going to put out a 5
They've been working on it.
That's going to be kind of interesting. It kind of
Because,
makes you where they're going to go after aliens.
well, some of it from what I have read, because it's led into other discussions or other speculation, is that some of it is flashback because they have done some. They've had Harrison Ford do some CGI work where they're going to de-age him. So some of the storyline is going to come back from something from the 30s or 40s, and the repercussions is coming to whatever time frame that we're dealing with. We're obviously going to be dealing with the 50s still. But yeah.
Bummer. I was hoping they would forget that Crystal Skull ever happened, but whatever.
Well, I mean, it's going to have to be in the 50s because they've already shown that they've acknowledged how old the character is, and obviously Harrison. So they've already made that step. They can't go around and turn around and go and do a whole movie of him being de-aged. I mean, they could, but
But how good would it be, and how much would it cost?
Right.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen the Goldbergs now that they've taken out the dad?
I've never seen the Goldbergs at
so
all.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, so bad. And I understand that you kind of have to deal with the hand that you're played, and they're doing the best they can. But it's like when they show him, most of the time it's just the back of his head. But when they actually show him, it's like, oh, dear God, way too much Botox, or he's got Play-Doh on his face or something. I mean, it's bad. So I hope they don't go that route, because even with The Mandalorian with Mark Hamill, when they de-aged him, that was kind of like, it was good, but it wasn't. You could tell something had happened there,
That's why they hired that deepfake guy from YouTube to do Luke for Book of Boba Fett. Spoilers for an episode that's been out 3 or 4 months now.
Right. Now that did look a little better. I will admit that, but yeah, it
looked a hell of a lot better.
We haven't figured out yet, and I don't understand how we've been able to do this in video games, but they haven't figured out how to do this in movies and things yet. With 3D design, you can get so realistic, and it looks, you'd have to really look at something to tell that it's fake. And then when you see some of this stuff that these paid top dollar programs are putting out, and it's like, are you kidding me? That's shit. Their hair doesn't even move. They've used a lot of hairspray, or it's bad CGI, So I hope they don't do that, because it's just, I don't know. I hope they don't do that.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's led to certain other speculations because supposedly Harrison Ford's been spotted on other sets saying that maybe, hell, he may show up in The Mandalorian.
I think with the time point that we're getting to with The Mandalorian, they're going to have to start, it's going to start overlapping in not so much what we've seen, but what they've told us has happened. It would make sense. But I hope they do another deep fake guy than the CGI guy.
It's the deep fake guy that they brought in to do Luke in Book of Boba Fett, and he's working on the Indiana Jones film, and with the reports of Harrison Ford being on other sets, they're going, well, they've already scanned him in. They've already got Harrison Ford's facial features and all that in the computer. It would not take a lot for them to turn around and make him look like Han Solo and then hand Harrison Ford a check saying, thank you for us using your likeness, which he would be okay with.
Yeah.
Because he's not doing Star Wars, but he's getting a big payday for it.
Oh, for sure.
So
Yeah.
we'll just see.
We'll see.
But that's led to other. It's funny how we got onto this because I saw some discussion on social media this weekend. They talked about how we've seen 5 or 6 different actors play Kirk, and now and some other characters of Star Trek, but Star Wars seems to want to go do CGI with the original actors. I mean, they did it with Carrie Fisher, now they're doing it with Mark Hamill. Maybe it's happening with Harrison Ford. It's certainly happening for the Indiana Jones film, but we had Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones, and you already mentioned River Phoenix, so we've had 3 or 4 actors already play Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and there's
why is Lucasfilm really set on trying to keep these original actors and spend all this money de-aging, well, instead of just casting someone who may resemble the original actors or may not. I mean, look at what's his face that played Solo in the Solo film.
Yeah.
He kind of looked like Harrison Ford, but they didn't. So yeah, I don't know. But it was an interesting discussion because it seems like it seems like they're trying to, and some talk about, well, they're holding on to trying to cash in on the nostalgia. So you got Mark coming back and it's like, yeah, I mean, because everybody kept saying they should cast Sebastian Stan to play Empire era Luke, which they do resemble each other to a degree.
Yeah.
But no, they went with the de-aging CGI. So I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. It's just kind of an interesting discussion, and it's an interesting approach.
I think it's kind of like with DC and Batman. They know where their money came from. They're not going to totally write them out because I don't think you would ever hear the end of it if they made a Star Wars movie and Mark Hamill or one of them wasn't involved because, well, he's not doing anything right now and he made this. So it was kind of...
That's because he's 80 years old.
Right.
Hey, he's retired. Leave him alone.
But see, people don't understand that. How is he 80? I just watched Star Wars yesterday. Well,
there's especially a certain group of fans that don't understand some of that shit.
Yeah, they don't.
I just saw some of that before starting this up. They're just not letting a certain actor step away from a certain role. He says, I'm not going to do that role anymore. I did it a couple of times. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I'm on purposely being vague because I don't want to really get into this.
Right.
But they can. It's funny the way things are going. It kind of reminds me of, to a degree, the film The King of Comedy. Was from the 80s. I don't know if y'all seen it. It was with Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis and I forgot who else is in it. But De Niro's playing a comic who wants to hit the big time, and Jerry Lewis is a comedian, but he hosts a late night talk show that's very Johnny Carson like. So that gives you a time frame right there.
Mm.
So what he basically he thinks they had a chance encounter. So all of a sudden De Niro thinks that they're buddies and all this, and he can get a chance to be on the show and do his routine and all that, and they go no. So he literally kidnaps Jerry Lewis's character and tries to blackmail to where he can get on the damn show. It's kind of the same attitude here.
Yeah.
It's like they literally want to kidnap the actor and throw him on the set and like, you're going to play this fucking role.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Well, I don't. Well, someone else.
There are people who come around and play a part so well that you don't want to see someone else do it. I mean, the first person that pops in my head is Hugh Jackman. How many times has he told people, I'm done with Wolverine, leave me alone? I want to sing on Broadway now. So it's and in a way it's their own fault because they were so good at looking like them, being them, attitude, everything. So it's the fans. I mean, some of it, like I said, could be Lucas's fault too, but I think he knew the hell he would catch if he didn't do that, you know?
Yeah, it just...
But yeah, they should try it differently, you know? And what happened to his little friend? Was it Short Round?
Oh, really? What happened to him?
At the next movie, he's, you know, if I took it, he adopted this kid, and it was his, you know. And then the next one, Shia LaBeouf, they're
Well, not the
gone.
next one, because we're talking about several years.
Okay, here's the deal. The first one was, I mean, the date they flash on the screen is 1936. So the second one, which was,
Raiders.
The first one was Raiders.
Ye-
The first one released in the theaters was Raiders of the Lost Ark.
right.
It was,
But I thought
and it
I thought the
flashed.
Raiders was 38. But I could be wrong.
You could be
Temple
right,
of
but
Doom.
the deal is the Temple of Doom was the second movie,
Right.
but the date they flashed was 35.
Yeah.
Or before the date
Yeah, it
of
was
the first
before
one.
Raiders.
So
right.
it's sort of a prequel in that sense, except that they're just not paying attention to the timeline, which doesn't matter because it's just an adventure story and nobody cares.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, Short Round was long gone by the time even the first movie came out. So yeah, no, I think the best way to interpret that is Short Round was a native of wherever they were, and he just happened to tag along for the ride, and they all just parted ways at the end.
Hmm.
It's funny how some of this it kind of comes around, because I saw Short Round was just mentioned on Twitter a couple of days ago, because someone had said the franchise should be transferred over to him.
Yeah.
But what from the discussion that I saw, Indy sent him to like boarding school and college, so he got the education and all that. So that's basically the quote unquote explanation of why he wasn't around for any of the other movies.
Okay.
He was off trying to get an education and living a life and that kind of stuff to where, and supposedly Short Round became an archaeologist. So it was like everything had been kind of groomed up, and of course this is through, I guess, the books and all that. I don't know,
Yeah.
but that's what I was reading, and I'm like, well, that would make sense. Plus the fact that, and I can't remember the guy's name because he was also in Goonies. He's just returned to acting. I think he's done very little in that time, but he's in the new movie, the new Michelle Yeoh movie that's coming out, the one where she's jumping through different, I don't know if it's different realities or different time periods, or that she's like different people. If you've seen the trailer, it looks great. I want to see it because it looks awesome.
I think I've seen
But
that.
he's playing her son. This is like one of his first few movies back. So it's like, well, that would be cool. And yeah, I wouldn't mind. He could probably do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far I want to go off in the weeds on backstories of these characters in this franchise, because if we do that, then we have to acknowledge how old Marion was when Indy first boned her,
Yeah.
and that's not a good story.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting idea of literally tossing the hat to Short Round, because nobody really wanted to see Mutt take over the franchise.
Yeah. Well, I think that
because Mutt was irritating as hell.
he was, and he was too impulsive. You can't be that way and short fused in the type of stuff that Indy does. You know, you've got to bullshit a little and find a way out while you're bullshitting a little bit. And he just wanted to jump to fight or jump to mouth off, or you can't do that.
There's
Get
some
yourself killed.
there's some interesting historical cultural stuff going on there with that, but we're so far off in the weeds right now. I'm afraid to start anything else.
Right.
Why not, Mikey?
Mm-mm.
We got to make up for the fact that Les is not here.
No, we don't.
Right.
We already have pretty much, but anyway.
Okay.
We'll have to do a show on this because I like I said, I've only seen the movies. I didn't know they had books, so
Nothing recent. I mean, it was all.
It's all in the
I
80s
mean,
and
there was-
90s.
yeah.
There was the
I
Young
mean,
Indiana Jones TV series too.
Yeah.
How many seasons that run?
A couple,
Yeah,
three,
I was
three or
thinking it
four,
was
something like that.
at least two.
Yeah.
I never watched it, but I know it
I
existed.
didn't either. Yeah.
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there used to be a comic. Marvel put out a comic, and then Dark Horse did when they had the rights to Lucasfilm. They didn't do it as long as they did Star Wars, but there were some. It was usually a series of miniseries,
Yeah.
of 4 issue series here and then one there and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't anything kind of regular. But yeah. And that's been a question that's been brought up is like, why hasn't Marvel done anything with Indy since they've had the rights to Lucasfilm stuff for a couple of years now? There's been nothing. It's just been the Star Wars books.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a demand. Maybe something will happen with the new movie.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. Is they need a catalyst for it. I mean,
You know,
the new
with the-
movie
with
needs
the
to
new-
do well
See
before
its
that's going to happen.
popularity again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because right now they're still building off of the fiasco that was Crystal Skull.
Well, that's been a long
Wow.
time though.
Yeah.
It is right, and that's why they're not doing anything, is because that's all they've got at this point.
Yeah, that's where they
Well,
left it. Yeah. How do you go from that?
I mean, I don't,
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to take up from that time frame.
no, it
'cause
doesn't, and
kinda-
it shouldn't. Honestly, in
Yeah.
all fairness,
Yeah.
they should jump back to the 30s.
Yeah,
But
the
Yeah.
30s and 40s. Actually, it would be interesting to see some of the stuff in the 40s. Because, I mean, Chris Skull mentioned him being involved with the war, working for the government, and it would be kind of interesting to kind of delve on that a little bit. But yeah, I mean,
you could do all
definitely
kinds
the
of fun
30s.
stuff with that. But
Yeah.
again, that's another episode. We could go into Nazi occultism, but let's just save that. We'll put a pin in that one.
Okay. I think
And
we
just
have
for
open
those
date in
curious-
September, so.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Indiana series is on Paramount, so
There you go.
I may have to check that one out too.
Boy, that's kind of interesting that Paramount still, well, Paramount put them out, but I mean, it's Lucasfilm, so that's kind of interesting to see what happens.
I'm sure somehow they have either acquired or not been busted for the license.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they also have all the Indiana movies, and it kind of sucks because if you watch it on Paramount Plus, this is going to sound so petty. They don't have closed captioning on it, and I'm one of those. I have to read what I'm watching to kind of hear what they're saying, And sometimes with closed captioning, you hear things or they show you things that you wouldn't have heard, So all of
And
the
sometimes
Indiana
they're not.
movies.
Sometimes they're not always right too.
Right.
That's
Sometimes
always
they just
fun.
suck.
Yeah. Sometimes they do. But I was kind of surprised because there's not too many shows now that's not closed caption.
It is interesting that they're not doing that. So.
Yeah. And I like that. I think it helps me really concentrate on what I'm watching because I'm also reading it.
It's like reading a comic book, huh?
It is.
Mm.
Moving pictures.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. How
That's
about
all
you,
I
Mikey?
Oh God, I don't even want to think about the last week. Because I've just been. Okay, so to be realistic, what I have been working on has been prep for episodes in the next few weeks. I mean, I have had other stuff going on other than that, so I really kind of don't have anything. I might have something next week. We will see.
Still working on that documentary?
Slowly, yes.
Okay. Just doing a checkup.
Yeah, that's part of it. I watched another episode of that about a week ago. I'm going to try to cram another one in this week. We will see.
Okay. Boy, mine's gonna sound very similar to yours. I mean, yeah, prep for the next few weeks. Real world stuff going on, yeah, that you guys know already. I did take some time. Tubi has added a lot of new stuff over the last couple of weeks, and I took a look at some of what's been added, and it's another one of those things that's just kind of crazy timing, because I don't remember how it came about, but I guess I saw some discussion of Man from Atlantis, the comic books from the 70s, which was based off the TV show, which I have those, but I don't remember reading them. And I vaguely remember the show, but I don't remember watching them.
That was the Patrick Duffy one, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's been added to Tubi.
Oh, wow.
So, like I said, the timing is just kind of crazy. So I watched the first episode, which was the pilot, that went about an hour and a half. And I hadn't got any further than that, so that should tell you something. I'll give it a chance, but it's just like,
having a hard time making yourself watch it already.
It was an hour and a half, but it felt like 5 hours.
Ouch.
Yeah, not good. The other thing that I thought was kind of cool, and I got about maybe halfway through the first season. They added the old Shazam TV show from the 70s that was on Saturday mornings. That was done by Filmation. I vaguely remember watching these. I mean, the stories didn't stick with me, but I kind of remember. I remember the characters and that kind of stuff. They're decent. I mean, they're nice little lesson stories, but that's what Filmation was really good with. Whether it's Master of the Universe or some of the other things where, you got the story, and then at the end you have one of the characters, and in the case of Shazam, it was Shazam, just kind of going, hey, here's a lesson of today's tale, and that kind of thing, which, I mean, it's go ahead.
And knowing's half the battle.
That's right. But it seemed kind of weird, because the episode started. It's so formulaic. It's not even funny. Every episode basically starts with them meeting with the elders, because I guess it was too hard of a concept for Billy to be dealing with the wizard. So they just decided to have these 7 gods, Mercury, Zeus, and Hercules, and all of them, just kind of show up and, hey, this is going to be happening down the road at some point, and you need to be thinking about, so basically they kind of tell you, hey, this is what the lesson's going to be for the episode. Then you watch the episode, and then at the end of the episode, you got, this is the lesson that you should have learned today. And, of course, you only get Captain Marvel for the last 4 or 5 minutes of the episode. I mean, it's a 22-minute episode, and he shows up at the 17-minute mark.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, it's very formulaic. It's the same. It's been decent. It's been decent, but it just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I could go back and watch something like that, to be honest. So you got more patience than I do.
Well, the fact that it was 21 minutes instead of an hour and a half kind of helps.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough.
By the time you're kind of heavily invested, you're going, okay, well, we're only dealing with another 10 minutes. I mean, so, what the hell?
Right. Captain Marvel's going to show up here in about 4 minutes, so it'll all be good then.
With the horrible green screen technology that there was back in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I mean, it's worth checking out just to kind of see how this is how they handled it back then.
Right. This was entertainment back in the late 70s.
Well, especially for Saturday mornings. I mean, you didn't have anything else. I mean, this was prior to Superman by 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking about the Chris Reeve Superman. So when that happened, holy cow, he actually looked like he could fly.
Mm-hmm. That's because they had a budget.
Well, yeah. True. And they had the people that can be able to pull it off too.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Yep.
So okay, before we get into this week's discussion, I do want to point out, we've already mentioned it a couple times, I believe, that we do have a Discord, that it's open for anybody to come join. Discord is free to sign up. The app is free. It's in all the app stores. We do have an invite on our homepage, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. We post a lot of news items, stuff for discussions, trailers, videos, memes, funny stuff. It's a blast to be, having run in this and some of the things that have gone on. I've been saying for a while that we've had it up for a year and a half, or something like that. May is going to be our 2-year mark. So we've had this thing up and going for everybody to join for almost 2 years now. That's hard to believe, but
cool.
The last 2 or 3 years, everything's kind of just melded together and just anyway. So by all means, come join us if you like to. We do have some fun activities going on. We've done movie nights in the past, and we'll do one here in the not too distant future. We just hadn't worked out any kind of particulars, that kind of stuff. So
we keep threatening it anyway.
Yeah, we keep threatening. So come join us.
Yeah, come join us.
Be like us.
I would say we have cookies, but I'm not sharing my cookies.
No.
Bring your own.
Bring your own cookies.
Okay. For this week, if you've been with us, I guess the last couple years, well, I mean, ever since we started in October, we've always kind of did a horror theme month. But for the last couple of years, we have been part of a group that's done all the horror, where it's we've joined up with other podcasts. We've had guests on our show, and Mikey's been guest on other shows and kind of do little discussions of horrors. But we've had such a blast with it. We just really couldn't wait for October to do this again, so we decided to do a special episode here in April. So we were joined by Kevin Cook of the Jury Room podcast, and we discussed the film Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. And with that, here's that discussion. welcome to All the Horror Special April Edition. Doing a one-off because we just love doing all the horror talk. This time we are joined by Kevin Cook from the podcast The Jury Room. Thank you for joining us today, Kevin.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about the Jury Room.
Sure. So The Jury Room is a true crime podcast that cover serial killers, missing persons, unsolved mysteries, cults. I mean, I've covered a little bit of everything over almost 2 years now. Currently, though, right now, I'm working on a series on addiction and addicts, trying to break the stigma around them. So I'm giving like the history on drugs, the war on drugs, as well as interviewing former addicts and how they got clean and sober, and as well as family members, trying to bring light to the fact that, you know, substance abuse kind of touches everybody. So that'll be a series within The Jury Room that I'm hoping to start dropping around May 1st. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But if you're there for the true crime content, I cover a little bit of everything. I just finished covering a mass shooting in my hometown. I actually lived there at the time. And then my next one is going to be a serial killer. So I'm really excited about the content that I've got coming up.
Sounds good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we have some true crime fans here, so I'm sure they'll be checking out your podcast. That's going to be awesome.
Well, wherever you listen to this podcast, you can find me anywhere on social media as Jury Room Podcast. If you want to reach out to me by email, you can reach out to me at juryroompodcast@gmail.com. And it is a very serious show. This episode I might be laughing a lot, but if you like the more serious type of content, that's definitely what you want to check out, is come over and listen to mine.
Yeah, Kevin doesn't
definitely
laugh much on his show.
And we're never serious.
We're
never. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't think people realize I actually know how to laugh. So when they find out I do know how to laugh, it throws them off.
And I was going to say, we're never serious here. So, you know, it kind of works out.
No, this is a much needed change. And I'm a huge horror fan in just the whole genre of horror. So it's exciting that I get to talk about another genre that I absolutely love.
Awesome.
Yeah. So speaking of true crime and criminal acts, what movie are we talking about?
We are talking about the misunderstood film Halloween 3: Season of the Witch.
Oh, starting right off with the editorializing too. Misunderstood, huh? All right.
So we don't have honest skills about this movie.
Hey, he suggested it.
Well, it's because no one else is. I wait for suggestions, but I might as well wait for hair to grow on rocks. So,
Right. It's like, we'll do whatever you think is good.
I would have come up with something eventually. Maybe. Oh man, yeah. So 1982.
It was terrible. Sorry, I just have to step in. It's an atrocity. It's not misunderstood. It shouldn't have. I mean, I don't know. I've watched a lot shittier movies, but yeah, it was not. So as I was telling you guys beforehand, for full transparency's sake, I have never really seen the Michael Myers movies. It just never was on my list of movies to watch. So I literally went into this movie with zero expectations, and somehow it still managed to let me down. So, but it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen, but it definitely didn't do it. It didn't do that that series any justice. You know what I mean? That franchise.
Yeah, the impression is that I get the impression that I get is that that's a pretty common sentiment among a lot of the fans of the franchise. And honestly, it's a very weird entry in the franchise. I mean, it really kind of doesn't fit the franchise.
Right.
And my understanding is that Carpenter's intent when he made the first one was that he didn't want to do a franchise. That was never his plan. He wanted to do kind of a series of different types of horror movie based around Halloween as a theme, which is why this, I think, was set at Halloween. There really didn't seem to be any reason to do that from what I could tell from the story, but yeah, it was just very, very, very different. I mean, I have a couple of theories about it, but
it felt like an anthology. It felt like something that was, he had intent behind it, but it just didn't fit the Halloween narrative. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's where it fell flat was, and rightfully so. If I was a fan of the Halloween franchise and I watched 1 and 2 and I go to see number 3, I'd be like, what the fuck? I'd be pissed. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And a lot
Michael
of people...
Myers, go ahead.
Two was rushed and never supposed to happen. When he did the first one, it became such a big hit that they kind of forced him to do a second one. So he never had plans to do the second one, which is why in the second one he killed Michael and Dr. Loomis off. So he was like, I'm done. Don't make me do this
He's
again.
like, we're not making a fucking third one, that's for sure.
Yeah. So when the third one came out, people walked in was kind of like, huh? Where's Michael? You know?
Right. Yeah, and that was about the time when the studio, instead of forcing him to do something like they did with 2, they were like, okay, this is working fairly well. I mean, 2 wasn't quite as successful as the first one, but they're like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And this is what Carpenter wanted to do. I mean, he wanted to bring in another story from another writer and do a different kind of movie. And they called it Halloween 3 for some damn fool reason, and it kind of ruined it.
Yeah. Well, they wanted to tap into that
sure.
You know, we've made so much money doing it this, you know. And I kind of got the impression, do you guys remember the Friday the 13th series that they did, where like each episode was related to an object and it was all the same theme, but you know, I think that's kind of what Carpenter was trying to do, was have this theme going to where, you know, yeah, this one kind of fell flat. And I'm a big horror fan, and to me, I mean, yeah, it's 80s slasher dasher, of course, typical horror film, but it did kind of fall flat even in the horror field, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean,
ooh, a mask, it's gonna melt my face.
If it had been a slasher movie, it would have been a different ball game. But yeah. He tried to go with a different kind of horror, and it just kind of didn't work all that well.
I mean, can we talk about the cheesy scenes, the death scenes, though? I mean, some of them were just like the very right off the title screen, you got that guy chasing that other guy, and he pulls that shock, and the car rolls into him, and he just keels over almost, right? He's like, oh, there's a car coming at me. Cool, I'm just going to stay right here. And he keeps trying to choke him. And then when the car hits him, he's just like, oh, a car hit me. Okay, I'm dead. And like the whole expression on his face was just hilarious. I was laughing right from the get-go.
Well, see, that was a setup, though. That was intended. Well, okay. I don't know if it was a setup for the truth that came later, or if the truth that came later was a way to explain the weirdness of that scene. But I don't know which one came first, but that we're going to get into spoilers into this, not surprisingly. That turned out to 82. Be an android later on. Yeah, 40 years right. This movie's been around. we're gonna spoil it, by golly.
We're gonna spoil it for you. It's fine. We got this.
You haven't seen it yet. You still got another week.
and so when it came out that they were robots, right? I was like, okay, that beginning scene doesn't seem so funny, but just the overacting of it was just.
Well, and to lead with that. And with no context whatsoever at the beginning, right. Yeah, that's it. You're just setting that up to be misinterpreted. You really are.
Right. Oh, is this Halloween the comedy? Like that's what it felt like almost.
Right, and it was a weird, and that's actually one of my issues with the movie is that the way the pacing worked, there was not really ever any suspense in this movie for me.
Mm-mm.
It was,
Not really,
which
no.
is kind of part of how I came up with my theory about it, but we'll get to that later.
Well, a lot of times you forget what the plot is, really. You know, is
Right.
it androids? Is it mass? What is it? I just, yeah, this,
Right. And
it was kind of all over the place. I think they had like a cool concept, but then they wanted to add all of this bullshit behind it, and it just
I'm
kind
actually
of fell
surprised.
flat, you know?
I'm actually surprised there weren't space aliens at some point.
Right.
Like they were just trying to do way too much.
Yeah. That he was trying to prove that this was the way it should have been, you know?
Right.
Right. And it's funny you say that because if I remember correctly, the original script writer for this was actually, I believe he was known for his work in sci-fi.
Yeah, check. Yeah.
Yeah. Nigel Neal.
Yeah.
Who wrote the Quatermass series back in the day, was the guy who did the initial draft. And when they started recommending changes for it, he was just like, "Nope, I don't like where this is going. I'm out."
Yeah. I would have too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people noped out of this movie, but anyway.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know.
All right, before we get too far, Tom.
Yes.
Tell us what you think about this movie.
I know there's a lot of problems with the script. I mean, there's a lot of gaps of logic, and I totally understand that. I thought it was an interesting idea. I like the film. I like the film. You know, the thing that kind of always pissed me off over the years is the general complaint about this film is it's not a Michael Myers film. I'm like, well, that's stupid.
That's not a complaint. That's just a statement of fact.
That's well, it's bitching. But
right.
Then again, it's led into the bitching that we see on social media now. It's just this unrealistic expectations. And I was like, really? You know, if you have a problem with the script, you hate it because of the story, you hate the acting, whatever. I would go, okay, I understand.
Right, it ain't your cup of tea. That's fine.
That's fine. We can discuss that. But if your main complaint of the film is Michael Myers is not in it, then I was like, you know what?
Right. Your argument is invalid.
I mean, the way that the franchise being bought and continuing with Michael, I would have to say I can understand why younger people, I hate to pick on the younger ones, I can see why they would feel that way. If you're, like my kids just watching this for the first time, it does seem a little out of place. It's like the bastard pup of the franchise.
Here's the story. This is something I've learned over the last few months, because I've always heard that it was their intention to make this into an anthology series. That's not the case. Carpenter did the first film, and that was all he wanted to do. But they brought it, we kind of talked about it, I think, before. He basically made a deal where he would actually come back and write the script for the second film so he can get, like, The Fog and some of the other of his movies that he really wanted to do, get them done. So when they walk to again say, we want you to do it again, he's like, no. And we're not doing this. That story's done. We wanted this to be an anthology film, and that's how everything got turned over to Tommy Wallace, who was part of Carpenter's group. I think he was like director of photography or something. He's always been with Carpenter until this point, and this was his opportunity to write this part of the script and direct and all that. So it was basically an FU to the studio saying that, hey, we're not going to do another Myers film. That story's done.
Yeah, we killed him. We shot him. He's over.
It's only because the first two films did so well in video rentals years later that they said, hey, maybe we can bring them back and start doing more films, and we got what we got. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this film literally could have been the last Halloween film because of how it was received.
Didn't he sell it after this?
He did after he and Deborah Hill sold their part during Halloween 4 because they came close to bringing them back. I don't remember all the details, but something broke down, and Carpenter says, "Well, fuck this. I'm definitely out." You know, and he was that way up until Halloween 2018. They came close to bringing him back for H2O, but he said, "No, you're gonna have to give me a shit ton of money to come back," and they weren't gonna do that. So he says, "Okay, y'all have fun."
Right. Well, I do think the last two of this franchise has been really good. Some of the others kind of. I mean, I've always liked Michael. Just being a horror fan, it's always going to be in my top 5, you know. But some of those were kind of bad too.
Oh God.
So it was nice with 2018 when they came back. They gave us a movie, you know.
So, I like the cast. I mean, I'm a big Atkins fan. Tom Atkins is awesome, and I thought Stacy did a great job, and Dan O'Hurley, oh man.
Okay, right, straight up, Dan O'Hurley. I mean, he wasn't in this movie a lot, but he did do a nice job when he was in it.
Yes.
He was just the right amount of sinister. Even though I don't know that he was given a lot to work with. Yeah, I mean, he did a nice job of just sort of, I don't even want to just say just being the bad guy. See, part of what threw me on this movie was that I got, I don't know, halfway into it, and I was just sort of looking at it. I mean, I was looking a little askance at it, and I finally realized, okay, I have to just sort of set aside the idea that this is a horror movie because it did not feel like a horror movie in any way. To me.
No. No.
And I think that might have been semi-intentional, but I don't think they meant to extract it as much as they did. The whole thing felt like a mystery. And I actually, for a little while, started thinking, hey, you know, this is in its own very simplistic and low-budget way, sort of not that far off of a James Bond movie. Because you get, I mean, the guy, you get, I mean, he's the main character is a doctor. And to be honest, I'll just sort of side-eye this in here. I agree with you about Tom Atkins. I really like Tom Atkins. I think it was the character in this movie that I didn't like. I don't think it was Tom Atkins that I didn't like. I just didn't like the doctor at all.
He's a drunk, womanizing, divorcee.
He's crappy to his kids. He's crappy to basically everybody he meets unless they look good in a skirt.
Yeah.
And
the character's not a likable character.
Right, which makes it hard. But so, I mean, other than that, you've got the big wealthy bad guy with the take over, either the take over the world or the destroy the world mentality. You've got the running around. You've got the technology stuff with the little badges. You've got running around in warehouses. You've got him chasing the young girl. Not like underage girl, but she was noticeably younger than him. And so it's sort of, I figured out it sort of fit the pattern of a James Bond movie, which does not make a horror movie in any way. And so when I figured that out, the pacing got a little better because when I fixed my expectation, because it was just, my problem with it at the beginning was it's, for a horror movie, the pacing on this is really screwed up. There's like no suspense at all. And When I realized, okay, stop watching it as a horror movie, that's when it got better. And then
It's funny because now that you say it think of it as like a James Bond movie, like as you're talking about it and explaining that theory, like I can totally get into it as a James Bond movie.
sure, I mean, it fits the pattern. It fits the outline. It hits almost all of the check boxes.
It's a template.
Yeah, for a James Bond movie. Almost.
Yeah.
I mean, but actually, it was funny. It was because I watched this movie like 2 weeks ago, and it's been swirling around in my head all this time. And I finally realized this morning, as I was getting up, I was like, wait a minute, it's not a James Bond movie. I was wrong. And I realized all you need to do, it would take a major. You'd have to start over. But if instead of a doctor in the lead role, you place Conan the Barbarian, and you set this as a fantasy adventure movie. This is basically the D&D movie that has never been made. It's a Conan the Barbarian movie. I mean, he runs around, he does the big beefy chasing women around and drinking and stuff, and then he goes and he fights his way into the facility and he kills the big wizard at the end, and he blows stuff up, and he runs off with the girl. I mean, other than the very end of the movie, this is a Conan the Barbarian movie. Okay, call me insane. Go for it. I don't care. maybe I'm tainted by many decades of playing Dungeons and Dragons, but
I won't call you insane, but I would love to be smoking what you've been smoking.
Sharing the class.
Oh, you know it's a bad one when I'm the one who has to share with the class.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Now I've just got Arnold Schwarzenegger in my head.
I know, right?
Next Halloween, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'm just saying. It would work. You laugh, but it would work.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it might make more sense.
Like I said, I like the idea. I kind of like the overall idea of what the story was, but it really needed a lot of work.
Yeah, it's just weirdly executed.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily badly, but not in any way that you would expect under normal circumstances.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we bashed them a lot, but God, I would love to see this one be remade. Someone take another attempt at that script, work out all the issues, and try this again.
Honestly, in a way, I mean, okay, so what I think they were going for was, I think this was, the problem is that somebody who didn't understand cosmic horror was trying to make a cosmic horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so it clearly didn't work. I mean, Carpenter himself did it 10, 12 years later with In the Mouth of Madness. Now, admittedly, he had a much bigger hand in the Mouth of Madness than he did in this movie.
Right.
But I think that's the only thing I can think of with the whole summoning up the dead god thing. I mean, that's as close as, I mean, that's part of where I got the fantasy thing from. But yeah. I mean, that's also pretty close to cosmic horror. There's a Lovecraftian twist in here that they just kind of didn't take in the story.
I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I can see that.
If they had done that, it would have made so much more sense. Honestly, you could have tacked it on 3/4 of the way through. You could have had an exposition, a 4-minute scene of exposition with Tom Atkins calling his buddy at some university and asking him about this. If he'd asked him about the god, you could have gotten this fun rundown, which would have turned the corner on this thing and made it all click together.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this.
Uh-oh.
Would you have loved to have found out how they brought that stone, how they took the stone from Stonehenge? Would you love that they try to explain that?
Sorry. That was just another plot twist, and the whole thing was Stonehenge. Somehow they got a stone down there.
Right. Undetected.
Undetected.
100% undetected. Nobody had any idea where it went or how it disappeared.
Right.
That is
disappeared.
That is an interesting point, and I don't know. I mean, there probably needed to be something, because as it stands in that story, none of it. I mean, it's honestly, yeah, it's just sort of one more thing that doesn't make sense in the story. So I don't know that it matters in that context. But if you're trying to make this make sense, yeah, you've got to do something. You've got to make some explanation for that, or find a better way to do it. I mean, honestly, rounding them all up, sticking them on a plane, and flying them to Stonehenge would have made more sense. Even if you're doing it on a damn set, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Where are we going? Stonehenge? We're just gonna go steal a stone. It's fine. Don't
just
mind
do the
us.
ritual in the henge. It's fine.
Right.
Just do it right out there at midnight. I mean, there'll be people around, but nobody's going to stop them. Because they've got an army of androids to stop anybody who comes to get them. That's why you're building the androids. It's not just to run the controls. That's silly. You have people who want what's going on to run the controls. Again, you turn Cochrane into a little more of a Bond villain than he already is, and he's just convinced everybody that this is the way to do this. And so he's got a bunch of followers, not just androids. The androids are there for muscle. They're not there to do anything useful.
Yeah.
I mean, I just watched this movie, and sometimes hearing like you describe it, it's like, damn, I forgot. Did I watch the same movie?
See, this is why I watch movies 2 weeks in advance. It's because it swirls around in my head like this. And yeah, sometimes weird shit comes out, but yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Most often weird shit comes out.
I think when it gets to the part where it turns from a horror movie to sci-fi is where it loses me. It just, I mean, I'm pretty accepting of some pretty weird shit. You know? That when
hang out with us,
kind of like when the evil guy starts explaining his plot, and you're like, what? What? No. I mean, it's a horror film. You're supposed to take a knife out and stab him in the face or something. I mean, that's horror, right? Not. Yeah.
But again, we get into subgenres there. I mean, yes, that's a slasher movie.
Yeah,
for sure.
This is the 80s.
But, well, and slashers were king
people
in the 80s, for sure.
That walked in the theater and been like, what? You know.
Well, but
there's a body count.
See, the deal is the primary thing about cosmic horror is that nobody understands anything.
Yeah.
And so, yes, this doctor guy is trying to find out what happened to this one guy, and he stumbles across all of this other weird shit that he doesn't understand. Well, that's classic cosmic horror. I mean, you're given a certain definition of the word classic, of course, but
yeah, I guess I've just never been a fan of that, like.
Well, and my deal is
killer clowns from outer space and that kind of thing. Just never.
So a surefire way to take you out of a movie is put outer space in the title.
Yeah, or make it be aliens. You know, it's I don't know.
If we had Space Marines back in, then we're good. But
yeah.
We got to be careful when we're writing
if we make it the Blob, then it's all right.
Oh.
Right. But see, that was more I guess that's what's confusing. Like with the Michael Myers, you have a stalker dude. He's a bad guy. He's the one you're watching through the film because you know he's going to kill everybody. This one, you didn't really have that bad guy that you could be like, this is who's going to be killing everybody. You know, now it's aliens and brain melting, and it's just, you know, there's no main bad guy.
Are you sure you didn't watch Scanners instead of Halloween 3?
I think so.
Because I don't remember any brain melting in this movie.
Well, I mean, you know, what were the masks doing? They were, I mean...
the only thing that we saw them do...
eating their brains or something.
...was burn the one lady's face off.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and then the kid, and the kid that had all the bugs and snakes and all that.
Yeah, like, come on.
Can we talk
know.
about where those bugs and snakes came from? Like,
Right?
I don't know.
That
if we
was
should
one
do
little
that.
evil kid.
Well, that was an evil kid anyway, but that's beside the
Right.
point.
They cut him open and snakes came out.
Yeah, see, the bad guy was that kid's mother, because that kid's mother created this kid out of bugs and snakes, and that badge thing was just turning him back into his natural state. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm totally making this up, but
Yeah, but it makes more sense than what they.
yeah, I mean, some better explanation of the badge things. I keep calling them that because I can't think of a better word. I can't remember what they called them in the movie now, but
the trademark or some shit.
yeah, it was some, I don't know, some medallion or something. I forget. A talisman, maybe they even said. I don't remember. But yeah, what that was supposed to do, a little more evidence, or a little more showing us a little more of that would have made this, I think, would have helped.
Yeah.
Because
A little bit more explanation.
They never really gave us a sense of what was going to happen if this guy didn't get stopped. Which, fine. Again, back to the cosmic horror thing. Not knowing is a key part, but you got to know. I mean, the hallmark of a good adventure is you got to know what's at stake. And I don't know that we really ever got much of a sense of what was at stake here.
When they set it up good. I mean, think about it. If you wanted to take out mass amount, I mean, we're going to make the NSA guy have a lot of fun right now. If you're going to take out a massive amount of children, what better night than Halloween? Especially when you put something inside of a mask that's going to do whatever it's going to do. I don't think we fully understood what those masks were supposed to do. That would be the time to do it, when yeah, of course, you're going to have a few kids that, want something different, or, religious holidays don't participate, but that's going to take out the most amount of kids. But I never understood why the target was kids. I mean, do they just take kids, or, kids?
I mean, do you blame them?
I always thought that it was tied in. It was just tied into the holiday itself, because they mentioned, if I remember correctly, mentioned Samhain.
Yeah.
So it was it was kind of like, it was just kind of destined, and it needs to be on Halloween night. I guess, I don't know. That was enough for me to go, okay, I can live with that and move on.
Well, and they're easy
I guess
victims.
These kids were sacrificed.
Yeah, that's true.
It's easy.
Yeah.
I mean, Halloween is whatever Halloween used to be. It is something that has now become about handing kids free candy, and giving kids whatever they want.
Not to do.
And kids are gullible. I mean, so
Yeah.
if you're gonna pitch something to a large segment of people, I mean, it's probably going to be easier to sway the minds of children.
Right.
So if you want to lead a society by the balls, get the children.
That is true.
Kill the kids. It wasn't going to control them. It was going to kill them, right?
Well, I don't think they were very clear about that.
Well, I kind of took it as death at the 10 more days till the countdown was to them dying, because make sure you have your mask on, make sure you're sitting in front of the TV. And we saw what happened to the kid in the control room. So it was they weren't planning on controlling these kids. They were talking about killing them.
Well,
and
how much control how much can that medallion thing do, though?
True.
I mean, that's, again...
Yeah, it did kill all the robots at the end, so obviously a lot.
Right, which wasn't that
Turn
around?
that one kid's brain to snakes.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not wrong.
She's not wrong. That's why I'm having trouble arguing with her at this point.
Okay, can we talk about Because now that you said James Bond, I still have this playing in my head now. That one scene near the end where they move that rack of masks and they're walking behind it like the old timey cartoons. You know what I'm talking about? Like nobody's gonna notice.
Straight out of a Buster Keaton movie, wasn't it?
Dude, I
Holy
was
shit.
dying.
I was
great. Laughing so hard.
I was like, yeah, and honestly, yeah, that was like, oh yeah, definitely James Bond, because nobody else would even try that shit in the modern day.
Right.
That was wild.
And then the box of medallion things that you guys are talking about, it was like a box of fireworks at the end. Like, I didn't even understand that point either.
Well, because the countdown had came.
Right.
They were all set to detonate at a certain time, and
See, but
I don't
you
know.
say
if
that.
I knew that I was planting a bomb inside of all these kids' heads, I don't think I would take the extra and put them in my warehouse.
Right? Why would you have any left over? I mean,
They're hand
seriously.
grenades, right?
Yeah, true. I mean, if this was all planned for this particular Halloween, why would you be working on masks for next year, except for just appearances?
And also, why would it be set to explode at a certain time, and then the movie keeps going?
Yeah.
And he leaves, he escapes, and he goes and he warns the public that this is about to happen. Well, it allegedly happened an hour and a half ago, dude. What are you talking about?
What happened was that the doctor had turned on the.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
He turned that on, and then that's when he threw the box of medallions.
He went up there and fucked around with the keyboard he couldn't read or understand, and made it all explode.
Yeah.
Another James Bond moment.
Yeah, it's another James Bond moment. Let me ask you this, because this is something that's always I didn't question it initially, but later on I just go, the giveaways at 9:00. Okay, 9:00 when? Eastern time, West Coast time. Those are different times,
Well, we're set in California here, right?
True, but if he's supposed to, if these are supposed to be, if these masks are all across the country, and the giveaways at 9, obviously West Coast time. So if it's West Coast time, then it's what?
It's midnight on the East Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
Which all the kids are in bed by then.
Right.
Sorry about them kids. We'll catch you next year.
Right. I mean, this is either intended to be just a large-scale sacrifice of children, or it's a terrorist act. I mean,
that's always puzzled me. And then, of course, at the end, and like you said, the spoiler territory for a 40-year-old movie, the doctor goes to the gas station, makes one call, and is able to get one guy to take off the ads off of one station or one network, and then the second network, and then couldn't the third one. It was like, who has that kind of power that's able to handle 3 different networks?
Yeah, the ending of this movie threw me off pretty bad. That to me was a big failing. The ending of this movie was a big fail for me.
Yeah.
I just didn't. After he fought off the android at the end, which I thought was a fun little twist.
Yes.
That's where it should have ended. But again, they're trying to go for the large-scale cosmic style horror.
Right.
To make it a bigger thing, and it was too little, too late at that point.
Even though you won, you didn't win.
Right.
It's a nod to the Kevin McCarthy.
The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
It's a nod to that ending, because that's pretty much it.
It is, and it worked better when Kevin McCarthy did it.
Yeah. So I saw what they were trying to do, and I can appreciate it, but it really didn't work.
Right, and this is kind of one of my beefs with Carpenter in general. He likes to do the little twist ending thing at the end, and honestly, his batting average is pretty low on it for my taste. It just doesn't work all that well most of the time for me. My personal opinion. My deal with Carpenter is I would love if he would. It would be better. All of his movies would improve if he would not do that. If he would just cut that last scene every time. And I say that there are one or two that actually are fine, but
like M. Night Shyamalan or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, you wonder if Shyamalan has taken some inspiration from early Carpenter on that. But I mean,
Right.
yeah, I mean
The
all of them.
The problem with me, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
you're
you there, Mike. The problem I have with M. Night is it's like after, what was the first one with Bruce Willis?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth
Sixth
Sense.
Sense.
After that, it's become expected, and I can figure them
Right.
out pretty quick now. And
Yeah.
so it's how good a twist can it be if you've already got it figured out?
Right. Yeah,
I
if you
mean,
see it coming in
perfect-
every movie, it's not a twist anymore.
Right. A perfect example is Signs. You know, why is this girl leaving half glasses of water around the entire house? That's got to play a part at some point. And we find out, yeah, it's like, okay, well,
Yeah, and it was the dead wife who sent the message.
Yeah.
I mean, even though she planted it before she died.
yeah,
Yeah. Again, spoilers for a
yeah.
at least 20-year-old movie.
Well, and then another one The Village. When I started watching that,
Yeah.
and everything looks like it's set in the past, and all of a sudden they start using terms that you're like, that was not. I'm sorry, I'm not an English expert or anything like that, but that's not a term they would have had back then. So I knew something was up. And then
OMG!
Uh-huh.
Which actually, I say that there's actually evidence of that being used more than 100 years ago, but so it's a bad example. But
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
I am a little more of an English person.
Mm.
But yeah. See, yeah, you say that, and Signs I think was the last Shyamalan movie I saw. Unless
Village-
it was Unbreakable. I forget which one came first.
Unbreakable came first.
Okay, then Signs was the last one I saw.
Village was okay, but like I said, I had already just from that I had figured everything out.
Yep. So what else do we need to fix about this movie? I know the list is too long. It's hard to pick one.
Talked about the beginning, middle, and the end. We've changed the whole movie. It's now a James Bond Conan film.
The team up you never expected.
Or
Yeah.
Wanted, for that matter. But yeah, you say that we're getting a fun Conan team up here soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not here, but our boy Peppo's.
Yep. Well, Conan's been kind of running around with the Avengers for a while, but yeah, he's now our buddy David's kitten. It's going to be, and boy, he is so pumped for it. You can tell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Anyway, what were you gonna say, Kevin?
I was gonna say, like I said near the beginning, it wasn't the worst horror movie I've ever seen. It had some substance to it, but it definitely it fell flat as a horror movie, and it lacks suspense. So I don't even know what kind of movie you would call it, really.
Right, there's almost no gore, which I mean is a questionable thing anyway, whether you need it or not.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're just sort of these androids just sort of walk around ripping people's heads off, which doesn't look great. It's not like the effects were fantastic either. If there'd been great effects, we wouldn't care. It would make up for the lack of story, honestly.
Right.
Right.
That's usually what the 80 movies was good for. They made up for budget and blood. And that one just didn't do that. So.
Or I mean, you didn't even get the 80s boob shot in this one. You know, it was like
they came close.
Right, but it was you never got the titties in there, and it was like, come on, man, that's another staple of the 80s horror movie, and it wasn't there.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Not that, you need titties, but titties make everything better.
Right. Well, in 80s movies, you saw titties and you were like, ooh, that bitch about to die.
Maybe that was the problem. The only woman we saw even come close to dying was one that we didn't want to see that anyway, so.
Yeah.
Oh, then they had that surprise where what's his name's daughter was a robot near the end, and I was like, I don't even know why I'm not even surprised about this right now.
Right. I mean, and that was the best action scene in the movie.
Right.
Sadly. I mean, it was a decent action scene. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, other than him running around in the warehouse, there's not really that much other action in the movie, except for when those androids show up and start pulling people's heads off. But that's so few and far between. So yeah, I was maybe it was also partly the context of it being the 80s, just made it kind of disappointing. We expected a higher body count or something.
Well, I don't think they had tapped the whole cosmic horror thing correctly yet.
Right.
I don't know if we have yet. Yeah, it just, yeah. There's too many ideals, too far out there, and yeah.
And not really woven together all that well.
No.
And certainly not
like
explained well enough.
Took a bunch of cool stuff and shook it up in a jar and said, okay, aliens, androids, pumpkin mask, let's make it work, guys. So.
All right, start shooting.
Yep. Kill someone.
Save the world, Tom Atkins.
With one phone call.
Yeah, to 3 different networks. But anyway.
I mean, nowadays, I guess you could call Disney and they could kill like 50 networks, right? So.
Yeah, maybe this was just foreseeing that.
If you call Disney and they cancel and they shut something off, they're like shutting off half the world. Let's be real.
Yeah. Big time.
You're gonna have half the world dead in the streets before Disney's gonna take anything off the air anyway. So
Yeah. Very true.
you're not gonna move them.
What do you mean kids are gonna die? It's fine. It's
We'll catch it
fine.
on the regularly.
It's not all of them, right? People can go out and
Right.
make more kids. It's cool.
Yeah.
Man, this is turning dark.
Yeah,
Right.
just a
And
little.
those that make it, you get free tickets to the park. Yeah.
You can go to our Star Wars hotel. That'll be fun.
Right. Where we're handing out masks.
Oh man.
Oh,
I
boy.
did like in the new movie how they made a nod to the masks. That was pretty cool. A kind of unexpected Easter egg. I don't even know if it was an Easter egg, so they were
It was.
pretty blatant with it.
Yeah. Well, still,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't catch on to that because they were maybe not familiar with this film. So
Yeah, they've been trying for 40 years to forget it, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's
Honestly, the mask
I've-
concept is about the only thing that connects this to the Michael Myers movies. Just the fact that
Yeah.
there's literally a mask involved. Because it's not anywhere near it geographically. This is in California. Now, I thought I was thinking about this morning. Did it say that this was in L.A. That this started in L.A.? Because another thing.
Oh, what was the title scene say?
Yeah, I don't remember now.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
But I was thinking it was.
Hold on, I can pull it up.
Of course, I also watched another movie since then that has that same title card thing, and I think it said something. I don't remember what city it had either, but apparently I'm bad with city names today. But one of the other things that threw me a little bit out with the doctor himself as a character was the hospital. Man, that seemed like a really small hospital.
Well, and the fact that he was called in because apparently there's no other doctors on call.
Right, which kind of makes it make sense that it's a small hospital. But if it's in a large city, why would you have such a small hospital? And so that kind of, I mean, because honestly, I've seen
It just
hospice
says
care
Northern
facilities that
California.
look like that hospital. It just says
It just
Northern
said-
California. Okay, so maybe it was a smaller town thing, which makes a little more sense to me than it being like L.A. with this like 18-room hospital. It's just a little strange. was another thing that right up front just didn't jive for me. Sorry, I see little details like that sometimes, but
No.
yeah, I wish his character was a little more likable too. I mean, kudos to him. By the end, he's like trying to save the world. So, I mean, clearly there's something there. I mean, he certainly can't save his own miserable life, but I mean, he screwed up everything he touches otherwise in his life. But
Something that we kind of gloss over that we didn't talk about. Why did that one robot at the beginning set himself on fire? So you remember after he kills the dad or whatever, and then he goes and he sets himself on fire, like
instead of driving away, right?
Right. He was already away. They weren't gonna catch him. So I never understood why he set himself on fire.
Right. Why was he the one shot disposable? Maybe that was, I don't know.
Because he almost failed.
But he didn't. He did exactly what he went there for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The guy he went there for was
caught.
dead. So he almost is the key. He was in the car. All he had to do was start the car and drive away, and he was fine.
Yeah, he could have been gone before anybody else got into the car and followed him.
I mean, he literally had time to get into the car, grab the gas can, pour it all over himself, and light himself on fire before Tom Atkins even got to the door, or right as Tom Atkins was getting to the door.
Yeah, he
was
could have
gone.
already been. Yeah, he could have been. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
I
mean,
know.
fire looks good on film, but other than that, I can't think of a good reason. We had to.
So we had an action, horror, Conan the Barbarian, non-Michael Myers having Halloween movie. That's what we ended up with. Mm-hmm. Sweet.
The only thing I can think of why they did that is for later in the film when you had the
lab tech,
the lab tech trying to
ID the body.
Try ID and say, hey, there's no bones, fragments, or anything here. It's all
all metal and plastic.
So, yeah. So just kind of reinforce that, hey, Cochrane's army is all robots. That's the only thing I can think of.
That robot had to sacrifice himself so that the doctor could have the evidence to figure this out in an hour.
Yeah.
Because a whole hour of the movie passed before we got to that.
Yeah.
Which is a weird setup.
And even then, it was almost discounted because it said, hey, she was going, hey, someone screwed up because that's all this is. There's nothing here to show that there was a guy in the car. She almost blew it off.
Mm-hmm. And also, it was another fun kill scene.
Yeah.
By then.
With the drill. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, the best explanation for the guy lighting himself on fire is to be confusing at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's weird and unexpected. That's why they did it.
Well, it worked.
It did work for that regard.
Well, if somebody sees you and you're with like this big crime family of androids, it's more likely to lead them back to you. Because, we've seen this guy. Well, we've seen this guy with this guy and this guy with this guy. You know what I'm saying? So at that point, it stops everything. You ain't looking for nobody else because I got myself on fire.
I mean, it's a nondescript dude in a business suit. I mean, that no one really got a good look at other than the nurse.
Which is straight up why he's walking around in a business suit. It's because this was the early 80s.
Well, if I was
Scarface,
I'd take him out.
Scarface.
They saw you. You're gone.
Now, are we talking Al Pacino Scarface or are we talking Paul Muni Scarface?
Paul Muni.
It's Scarface is Liz's crime name.
Blind person fast.
It's her underworld name. Not sure why. I don't remember having any scars, but anyway.
A little bit of trivia.
Mm.
The voice that was over the PA announcing curfew and then was on the phone line, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yeah. How about all the homage they were paying to Halloween and putting it on the TVs?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They were
it showed up
watching the
3 or 4
movie
times.
right.
Yep.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yep. It's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. Curfew.
I didn't recognize it at the time,
No.
for sure.
Well, I didn't either.
Yeah, I don't recognize it either. Even now, I don't hear it, but I'm sure they kind of distorted it or something.
And here's something else that I always thought was funny. Okay, you got that scene where it's okay, everybody's supposed to be in their houses and that's it till tomorrow. But somehow the liquor store is open because the doctor's in there getting booze.
Oh, yeah, and there's random homeless guys walking around, too, while he's walking through
Yep.
the town after curfew to go buy a bottle of booze because,
Mhm.
drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. It's
Like,
not a very good curfew, especially given that you've got a friggin' Android army to enforce that shit. Come on, people.
Well, we learned with COVID that that's a necessity.
An Android army?
It's
or
above
alcohol?
curfew.
Oh, that.
Or a mask. You need to have a mask,
Right.
too. I mean, I felt like it was a precursor to the pandemic almost. It had curfews. It had masks. It
Right.
had fucking weird shit happening. I mean, how much fucking... It was like you could almost use it as a pandemic documentary at this point.
Yeah, now all we need is for a stone to disappear from Stonehenge, and shit, we're in the movie.
There you go.
I don't know, Liz, see what you can do about that, will you?
I'll get to work on that.
Time to put your Android army to use doing something productive. Shit.
There you go.
Right?
All right. Any final thoughts on Halloween 3?
Don't go into it. Go ahead.
I was just saying, would you even recommend watching this film?
You have to. I mean, to appreciate what they've given us, no matter how bad it's been, you have to. It's just...
Right, if any of what we've said doesn't make any sense at all, go watch the movie and you'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost a rite of passage into your horror experience, you know. You're going to run across a few that you're going to go, what the fuck? And that's this one. But you still have to watch it to say you've watched it.
Well, and it also makes you appreciate the better ones even more.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't just go through life watching just all the good horror movies. That's no good. You have to understand
And if you ever
the others.
asked yourself, what if they made a Halloween movie without Michael Myers? This is it.
This is the
There
one
you
they
go.
made.
Go watch it.
I literally don't think anybody has ever asked themselves that, ever.
Pretty much not.
Well, you know, the world is full of weirdos. If they did.
There's your calling right here. This is your calling. This one is it.
Right, weirdos of the
This
world,
is it.
unite
It's
under this
perfect.
movie.
I
There's a statement.
I wouldn't necessarily say that I recommend it, but I wouldn't not recommend it either. It is definitely a rite of passage movie. If you're into the horror genre, it's definitely something, to put on in the background. I wasn't mind-numbingly bored, but it was definitely on, near the bottom of my list of horror movies, but it's worth the watch, and it's not completely unwatchable. I didn't want to turn it off, but I also don't want to watch it again, so I would say it's good for a one-time watch.
See, I wouldn't change the channel if it was on. Just because of what
Right.
it is. But I wouldn't put it on.
I would say watch it. I mean, I can understand if you don't like the film, because I've obviously pointed out issues with it. There's worse horror movies out there, Hell, there's worse Halloween films. I can name 4 that are worse than this,
Ooh.
at least. And 2 of them were directed by zombies. So there you go.
Oh, here we go.
Ooh.
Here we go.
Now,
Shots
Les isn't
fired,
here. I'm
shots
supposed to be getting,
fired.
some relief on the zombie.
Oh no! Just because Les is not here doesn't mean you get a break.
As much as a zombie fan as I am, I will have to say, if he's not your cup of tea, you won't like those movies. You won't. But if you like his gory House of a Thousand Corpse kind of style of movie, you'll love them.
So effectively, what you're saying is that if you like Halloween movies, you're not going to like zombies Halloween movies.
No.
Exactly.
Which is an interesting statement, but not an untrue one in any way.
Right. Especially if you're into like canon and I can't even say the word continuity. Yeah,
Continuity.
you won't like them. But to me, he kind of, for me, answered the questions I had always wondered about Michael. You know, why is he fucked up? You know, why did he kill his family? And he kind of gave you a glimpse in that, which a lot of people didn't like because they were like, hey, you're making us sympathize with a serial killer. And, you know, I won't say most, some serial killers, if you actually listen to their backstory and stuff, it's like, well, no shit, you're killing people. I mean, you know, you not that you can understand it, but you kind of do understand why they did what they did. You know, so I think this was a perfect light on someone with mental health who wasn't properly taken care of and went crazy, you know.
Right. And see, my only argument, I guess, with that is that there should be a distinction between a serial killer and a monster.
Right.
And Michael Myers has always been a monster.
Right.
So the thing that went wrong was that Zombie treated him like a human being.
Yeah.
And that's a huge departure from the whole series.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you get a lot of the disconnect with people not liking it.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people do not like it. It's, like you said, you humanize them. You made them more sympathetic.
Well, and you kind of understood why he killed his sister, and you know his dad was horrible. You know,
which in its own way takes Michael Myers away from us.
Right.
Because we want to love our monster.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to understand our monster. Understanding our monster is actually a bad thing because we don't want to be able to relate to that.
Right.
Because he's a monster.
Yeah.
Anyway,
which is probably part of the fun and horror. But
so psychoanalyzing it obviously, but you know, at least for me.
I think that's why so many people love true crime. Not that I'm trying to segue back into my podcast,
no, this is a good time to segue back into your podcast. It's fine.
That people are very fascinated by true crime because of that, trying to understand that how somebody could be a monster, or you know, trying to relate. And it's crazy too, is because like if you go back to a lot of like serial killers and murderers like backstory, you know, a lot of them have been abused and stuff like that. So it almost becomes relatable to the point, you know, where they start killing people, obviously. But it's still one of those things that you just try to understand, you know, why they are the way that they are. And I think that's why a lot of people are fascinated with true crime.
Honestly, if you ask me, there should be some true crime requirement as homework for having a child in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, you should, when you get your baby home, you should be required to listen to X number of hours of true crime podcasts or something, because this is the time when you're starting to do this shit to your own kid. And people need to understand that.
Well, and they also to understand that this isn't a happy little world. There's some, you know, no matter how much you love your kids, there's some pretty screwed up stuff right outside your door. And you always think it's someone else, but no,
it's not
that problem. Monster can be your neighbor, can be your PE teacher, you know, it can be anybody. And the reason I like true crime, though, is when you hear of something like that happening and you're like, oh my God, you know, to a normal person who's not going to go out and kill 50 people, you want to know why. Why would something like that happen? So you almost have to get to know the person who did it to, as crazy it is to almost feel safer, that, okay, these are these
100%, and I agree with
conditions,
that.
Right, and
and,
it's the understanding
know,
that makes us feel like we understand a little better, which
yeah.
is very much a comfort thing.
Well, and part of comfort is that you don't understand, that you can't understand why somebody would do something like that because you're not a psycho.
Right, speak for yourself.
Well, I mean, I'm a little psychotic, obviously, but,
Right.
that's neither here nor there.
Or true crime, I already figured that out.
Right, exactly. So I don't even need to say it. It's just branded on my face already.
On an audio podcast, even.
On an audio podcast, even.
So, Kevin, you want to go ahead and promote the podcast one more time?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, my show's a little bit more serious, but I do enjoy coming on and kind of laughing and having fun with you guys. So thanks for having me, first and foremost.
Sure.
If you guys invite me on again, I will not say no, but hopefully we pick a better movie next time.
Well, that would kind of be against our MO.
Our show probably
Yeah.
not.
No, but if you want to come check out a true crime podcast, definitely find me. You can find me anywhere you listen to this podcast. You can find me on most social media platforms at Jury Room Podcast. You can email me, juryroompodcast@gmail.com. And again, it's a solo hosted narrative-based podcast. But unless I usually bring a guest on every other episode, so it's a little bit of both. But definitely come check me out.
Awesome. Well, we were happy to have you on here, and we definitely want to have you on again. Here real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, man. Just invite me, and I will make it happen.
All right. And with that, we'll be right back. And we're back, and it's time for our new segment, Geek News for You. We find a couple of news items and bring them in here, and we will discuss them. So I hope y'all been enjoying this news segment because we've been enjoying it. This week, it will be myself and Mike. And Mike, why don't you go ahead and go first?
All right, sure. I'll start some shit. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so the article I found is actually from Gizmodo, and the title of this is published today, and the title of this article is "Scientists Are Inching Closer to Creating Truly Hypoallergenic Cats." I'm so not looking at Discord right now. So apparently there's a group of scientists in was it Virginia? Yeah, in Virginia, who are using CRISPR, which is a gene editing technology, to isolate the gene which produces the essentially the proteins that humans are allergic to. I may start some shit here, but I'm thinking, man, do we really not have anything better to spend our time on than this? I mean, come on. How many people starve to death every year because we don't have enough food to feed people, or because we can't get our shit together to feed people? It's not that we don't have enough food. It's just that it's not in the right places for various reasons. But we got time and money to spend on genetically modifying pets. We can't be bothered with genetically modified food, mind you, because clearly we human beings can't understand what that means. But genetically modified pets, hell yeah, let's do that. That sounds great.
That is kind of weird.
What the fuck is
It
wrong
is
with
very
people, man? Jesus. Humans suck. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
we do. Well, I was reading a story in one of my dog groups that a lady had cloned her dog,
Oh yeah,
which
that's been a
was,
thing for years. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like $50,000. And it's like, I love my pet, but goodbye.
Go to fucking pound and get one for $50. Half the time they'll waive the $50 if you just take the dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
get them spayed and neutered and you're fine.
Right.
Or spayed and chipped. Well, the lady was upset because this dog, although it looked like her dog, acted nothing like her dog. Well, no shit, lady. I mean, God. Even twins don't act the same,
Again, people don't understand what cloning is.
Yeah,
Just like they don't understand, they don't understand what
Yeah.
genetic modification is either. I mean, we get people bitching constantly. Oh, I don't want genetically modified food, motherfucker. You have never in your life eaten anything that was not genetically modified, and you just don't understand it. And the only reason that's a thing, see, this is what I was afraid of, was I was going to go off. The only people just don't, the whole non-GMO thing. You know where that started? That started because farmers got pissed off at Monsanto, and yeah, I'll say their name. They're not going to come after me. I'm nobody. They have way more money than I do, so they're not going to sue my sorry little ass. They were pissed at Monsanto because they were selling them this genetically modified crop seeds, which then they got pissy because what happened was that the seeds were so good that they would spread on their own without any help from the farmers, and so the Monsanto would go after the farmers for spreading their genetically modified crops. So that's where all of this started. And somebody's going to fact check me at some point, and I'm probably a little off on some of the details, but essentially, what this all started with people not hating genetically modified crops. It was hating the corporation that was suing farmers for spreading the seeds,
Yeah.
which they couldn't control in the first place. So all of that non-GMO shit started. It's actually, honestly, ultimately, it's people hate corporations, not GMOs. But it's been blown up into such a thing by reactionary people and other corporations that were riding high on all of this bad publicity for Monsanto, and it's just become a thing now, and honestly nobody understands it. They just don't get it. I mean, if you've ever eaten a banana, bananas as we understand them did not exist 50 years
Yeah.
ago.
No.
And honestly, tomatoes are those things come from a plant that is very, very closely related to deadly nightshade.
Mm-hmm.
But the fruit had been crossbred and crossbred and crossbred until it was edible and wouldn't kill you like deadly nightshade will. I mean, you name it, and you name the food, and it's been modified to hell and back genetically, because that's what clipping plants is. It's essentially genetic modification. You're clipping together two parts of a plant in the hopes that it will grow something different.
Yeah.
That's it. And so now we're spending God knows how many millions or even possibly billions of dollars to make pets that don't make 20% of the population sneeze when they walk past them. When there's literally uncountable potential pets out there.
Yeah.
If you want a pet, get a pet. If you don't. If you're allergic to pets and you can't stand that, then don't have a pet. That's the deal. It's not that important.
Well, maybe if more people were less allergic to animals, we wouldn't have the problem we have at shelters, right? Well, We would, because
No,
people are
because
stupid
that's
anyway,
more about
but,
people being
you know.
stupid than allergic.
Yeah.
Right. That's because they don't know how to handle a pet.
Right.
And they're not, and they don't care to learn. They just want to
Yeah.
buy a better pet. Well, the problem's not the pet, people.
Pets don't come trained.
Right. And if you're too dumb to train it, and if you're too dumb to take care of it, then you're too dumb to have a pet.
I agree.
But I'm going to make everybody happy tonight, huh?
Mm.
Not me. I'm right there with you.
I agree. The biggest problem facing animals in shelters is humans.
The biggest... I got to stop somewhere. Humans are the problem.
Yep.
The Matrix had it right.
Yep.
We're a virus.
We are.
We're infesting the planet.
We do.
We infect everything we mess with.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, follow that up.
Mm. It's going to be a little more lighthearted, I guess. I don't know.
I hope so. Oh, you got
Maybe.
something out of Mortuary Today, did you? Because
Well,
that would be lighter than I've been.
close. Actually, this came about from, once again, from Twitter. I saw some discussion. I was like, how in the heck do you... I still don't know how they do this. But there is a website called Box Office Pro. And this article actually came out in March 4th. But they did a long-range box office forecast for the movie Morbius, which will be out by the time this episode drops. That will be actually opening weekend. And I'm like, I don't understand how they can come up with these numbers, but they did. But the report kind of breaks it down and what's in favor of the movie and what's going to be against the film. And it's kind of interesting because it talks about the fact that, well, Morbius is going to be theater exclusive. They consider that a pro. I think that could be open to debate. But
biased, but okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is Box Office Pro, so I mean, yeah,
Right.
it's a theater themed website, so yeah.
Sure.
Another one, the fact that it stars Jared Leto. I'm like, okay, that could be open for debate too, but there's a lot of people that like him.
Wait, they consider that a plus? Hang on.
They consider that a plus.
Okay.
Well,
Depends on what he's doing.
at least they say he's a familiar presence. So I'm like, okay, I can accept that. And of course the fact that this is a Marvel Sony team up, and they just had success with No Way Home just 4 months ago. Plus the fact that Michael Keaton's going to be in it, and the assumption that he's reprising his role as the Vulture from the first Spider-Man: Homecoming. And really, there's nothing else going on at the time because the Batman's been out for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And the next big comic book movie will be Doctor Strange, which is literally 5 weeks later, right around the 1st of May, that kind of thing. Here's the cons. Early social tracking has leading lukewarm, unfortunately, with each trailer release generating underwhelming sentiment amid tracked online chatter. I'm like, yeah, I've not really seen a lot of people going, oh my god, I can't wait for this movie to come out. This is going to be great. It's been very lukewarm from what I've seen. I don't know about you guys, what you have seen. And I've already talked about the fact that it's in between The Batman, which has done extremely well, despite what some people are saying, and Doctor Strange, which I think a lot of people are going to be are really wanting to see what's going on after what happened with No Way Home. Plus, oh my God, it's Sam Raimi. I mean, this is perfect for him, and he's a Ditko fan, so
Yeah.
this is something he's wanted to do. So, with all that stated, these are numbers as of the first of the month, and they just posted, or over the weekend they posted kind of updated numbers. What they're saying is for the opening weekend, they predict it will do $40 to $60 million. Now, by contrast, the Batman did almost 130. So this is not good news for Sony.
No, not at all.
And what they're predicting that the total domestic will be, the range would be, is 80 to 130. Now that's at the first of the month. This is their prediction, their numbers they're predicting as of a couple of days ago. Opening 3-day weekend, 40 to 50. So the roof has gone down $10 million, and that the domestic total will be 85 to 110. So they're not really predicting that this movie's going to do well, and I think there's several factors to it. It's not a well-known character, but I think they fell into the John Carter trap. We've had this talk before that you see a movie called John Carter and people will just think, okay, maybe it's a biography or just some kind of drama, like an inner city school teacher trying to be a good influence on kids or something like that. But if you call it John Carter of Mars or Warlord of Mars or something like that, now you got an idea. Okay, this is a sci-fi film.
Yeah.
This is called Morbius.
As opposed to Morbius, the living vampire.
Exactly. You call it the Morbius living vampire. Okay, there's going to be horror aspects to it. It's a monster film. Although you see it's a monster film by the trailers, but what kind of monster?
Not everybody who goes to see a movie has seen the trailer, believe it or not.
True.
Right.
True.
So if really all they're going by is the title, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, Morbius doesn't mean anything to them.
Right. You can get away with shit with something like the Avengers because people know what the Avengers is. Even if they're not a comic book fan, they've heard of the Avengers.
Right.
Also, they've been plugging it for like 14 movies already at that point.
Right.
But yeah, you can't just do that with a character that's just not that popular.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, not only not that popular, but you get an actor whose last big role created a lot of bad press. It's just not. I think people who haven't heard of it, when they hear Jared Leto, it's not going to have a very good reaction.
See, but the deal is you're biased. And I only say that because he had a career before Joker.
I loved him as a singer.
He was a very well-respected actor in several films before Joker.
Yeah.
He definitely shit and fell back in it with Joker, but I can see where he's still a well-respected actor, which I still don't. I mean, I don't know enough about the character to even care about this movie, but
right.
I wouldn't necessarily discount it just because he's in it.
I mean, wasn't he nominated for Academy Award for Dallas Buyer Club?
And that was pretty good too. Yeah.
I mean, granted, that's 9 years ago, but still. And he was in House of Gucci that came out last year. So I mean,
but he was more supporting in that than.
Well,
what carried them was Adam Driver and Lady Gaga. That's who people went to see.
He was more supporting in the film that you're vaguely talking about too. So I mean, he wasn't the big thing. No. I'm not. Don't. Please don't think that I'm trying to be mean about this or anything. I just,
I mean, he's done some good.
Well,
But
I think
go ahead.
I think for me anyway, the heart of this article is who comes up with these numbers and why, and how often does this happen? I mean, is somebody really sitting back and reading this stuff and going, "Oh, well, that's in that case, I'm going to go see this movie," or "Oh, in that case, screw that, I don't want to watch a movie that's only going to make $40 million domestic."
Yeah.
Well,
who's doing that?
I would definitely love to know how they come up with these numbers, and these numbers don't influence people going or not. I mean, they're going to go whether they, based off of what they've seen and then what they hear from, especially from other people, and there's already been early reviews and they've not been kind. I mean, I haven't read anything detailed. It just, from what I read, and everybody take this with a grain of salt, the script's a mess. So when they're coming out and saying the script's a mess, and that there's like 2 post-credit scenes and both of them are actually worse than what you've seen in the movie, they make less sense. I'm going, oh my God, this is not good. If people are coming out and saying that, so we'll see, because I'm gonna hold on to this, and obviously we'll have these on the website. We have a page set up just on the news items that we mentioned here on the podcast, so you can read the information for yourself. But I'm definitely going to keep this up so I can see how accurate, or how they're not going to be accurate, but how in the ballpark they're going to be. And it would be interesting to see.
And we've seen them be totally wrong,
Uh-huh.
I think that they said that, here recently Joker was going to flop, and it went on to do, $1 billion at the box office. So they're not right. I think this is a case of a bunch of loudmouths projecting.
It's how is this any different than a speculator on a stock market?
Yeah.
I mean, there's people here who've probably got the knowledge, got the experience, and they're just saying, based on what they're reading, this is what we think is going to happen. That's exactly like someone doing stocks.
Right, some jackass on YouTube talking about what stock he's going to buy.
Yeah. So are they going to be any better or worse? I don't know. But I thought it was interesting because I hadn't really thought about it until I saw the discussion to a degree on Twitter. It's like, yeah, you know what? Not a lot of people are talking about this film, and it's literally I mean, April 1st, it's coming up, and no one's talking about this, so no one's excited about this film.
I haven't heard a lot about it either.
And I'm going, okay, it's a Spider-Man villain, which we don't know how much crossover there's going to be with the MCU. Although if they got Michael Keaton in there, there's going to be some, but or tied in with Spidey. But it's a vampire.
Yeah.
People like vampire films.
They do.
So it's just like, why is nobody talking about this film? It's strange.
I think your parallel to John Carter might be important in this one when we pull this up 4 months down the line.
Don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny because I had only thought about that within the last couple hours.
Yeah.
Because I've actually spent some time thinking, why aren't even the Spider-Man fans saying ooh, this is going to be cool, and I can't wait until they try to get them together with Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and them battle or whatever. Yeah, it's like there's nothing.
Well,
It's crickets.
has Morbius been in the Spider-Man movies?
No,
Nope.
but he's a Spider-Man villain.
See,
I mean,
that's the fandom nowadays. They don't care about comic books. They care about the movies. I have a friend that will go tooth and nail with you about Marvel. Knows nothing about the comic books though. So unless the movie has told them to be excited about this, and Marvel hasn't told them the Spider-Man connection, they don't know that. I mean, I'm not trying to be like gatekeeper or anything like that, but they don't know that. So their biggest part of their fandom doesn't even know that's part of their fandom.
and that could be true, because you could probably say the same thing about Venom. If it wasn't for the fact that Venom was in the original Spider-Man 3,
Yep.
there probably wouldn't have been 2 Venom movies. There would have been one, and everybody go, what the hell is this?
Yep.
And it would have ended at that. It's possible.
That they haven't told them. So I don't know that much about Morbius. So is Morbius their version of Blade?
Well, Blade's part of Marvel
Blade's
Universe.
Marvel also.
So are they like the same type of being, or
Morbius? Well, Morbius, if I remember correctly, he was a scientist, and he was trying to he was researching on something, and he took a serum, and it literally turned him into a vampire. He's basically a synthetic vampire.
Okay.
He wasn't bitten. He was not bitten by another vampire or a bat or anything like that. His origin is artificial. So
sort of accidental, but not.
Yeah. Now, how from what I have seen in the trailers, it's gonna be something similar. I mean, they show him kind of weak. He's having to use crutches to walk and all that. So he's obviously, so from what I've gathered,
what little I saw, it made it sound like he was trying to cure some disease.
He's trying to cure some disease, and it turns him into a vampire. Which is, I mean, it's very close to it's very similar to the comics origin. I can't remember right now exactly how the comic book origin went, but it's very similar.
Hmm.
No. So hey, props for that.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably watch it when you can watch it at home. Still not the movie that makes me go, I want to go sit with a bunch of people. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Well, the way things have been going, you're only talking about 2 or 3 months, because I mean, hell, No Way Home's already is already available on demand and all that, and that came out in December.
Really?
I'm pretty
sure. I didn't know that either.
I'm pretty sure. I'm thinking it's out there right now.
Yep, it is. It's only on demand, so I'm sure Disney has plans soon.
Right now I'm showing it on, Google Play, Apple TV, YouTube, Vudu.
Starz gets it before Disney Plus does.
So, it's for $20, but yeah.
Isn't that kind of weird? Starz is going to get that before Disney does?
It could be some remnants of the deal with Sony.
Okay. Oh. Well, I have that too, so. Yeah, I'm still waiting for that one special movie, but.
So it's definitely going to be interesting to come back and look and see how close, how much in the ballpark they are.
It does. Well, and if some of the rumors of Spider-Man crossing over, maybe that's what'll do it for him, you know. On its own 2 legs without that crossover, I don't think it'll do too well. Just like you said, I haven't heard anything about it. Marvel hasn't really pumped this movie up very much. It's not their cash cow, which is
The
well, we don't know what the arrangement is between Marvel Studios and Sony. So
yeah.
So who's really supposed to be promoting this film? Is it supposed to be Marvel or is it supposed to be Sony? Or is it supposed to be? Or is it
They're
supposed to
both
be?
dropping the ball,
They-
so
They
whatever.
both want money, right?
Well, I understand that, but it's how they've got all this stuff arranged. We just don't know. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can blame both of them, but it may not be in fact both of them that's responsible. I mean, like I've talked before, the reason why we don't have a Hulk film is because Universal owns the distribution rights. So I mean, that's why all of a sudden Bruce and the Hulk showing up in everywhere.
Everybody else's movie, right?
Well, and everybody's TV show because there's talking about him showing up in Moon Knight. I'm like, okay. Why?
Right.
So I don't know. This kind of goes above my level. So
Yeah, it's getting harder to track all of that at this point.
yeah. Even with all of it coming in the house, there's still all these loose ends and all that kind of stuff. So, but like I said, it'll be interesting to see how accurate these projections are.
Yep.
Honestly, after all this talk, I think it's going to probably skew lower, but we'll see.
Right. Who knows? Nobody knows, including the people who put out those numbers. So we'll see.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So. All right. Any special shout-outs or mentions? I mean, obviously, we want to thank Kevin Cook for joining us this week. Definitely go check out the Jury Room podcast. We'll have all of that in our show notes where you can find them.
Yep, we sure will.
So,
Yep.
Anything else?
No, not this time.
Shout out to Les. Hopefully we'll have you again here next week.
Yeah.
Hopefully everything's all right. So
Yeah.
Let them tech bugs go away.
Right. Go chase them bugs down. Spray some Raid in there or something.
Raid! Oh no! Never mind.
Hey, it was either that or the Roach Motel joke, and I didn't want to go there.
Yeah. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. Okay. On that note, let's go ahead and do our regular shout-outs while Mike recovers. First of all, I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture Podcast Network for allowing us to be part of a great group of fellow podcasts. Definitely check them out. There will be a link in the show notes. I also want to thank the fine men and women who make up Potter Family, who've been so gracious as to spread the word of the fellowship by retweeting our links. Definitely check them out on Twitter. Just do a search, #PotterFamily, one word. Just scroll through, whatever catches your eye. Please click on that link and download the episode. I hope you have a good time listening. Thank you guys as always. Want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying the music to our podcast. In our show notes, we'll have a link to where you can listen to their music. Thank you guys as always. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. If you have any comments, questions, complaints, observations, whatever, please send them our way. There are several ways you can do that. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can go to the website, go to the About Us page, and there's a contact form that you can fill out there. We mentioned the Discord. You can join our Discord. We do have a feedbacks channel there. You can post your comments there, or if you would like to message us individually. That's okay. You can do that. Social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. Obviously, we're on Twitter, @Fellowship Geeks. Follow us there if you like. If you want to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found @MikeyGeek. Liz can be found @LN_geek. Les may or may not be found @Fake Les Webster. And I can be found @TomTCGeek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you would be so kind as to rate and review the show, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for
Say
listening.
bye, Felicia.
Wow. Thank you for listening, everybody. We do appreciate the support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook @The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter @Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,